Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Z. Martin, and tonight we are talking about the top episodes. It's our eighth get together on this, but you know, there are a lot of episodes in Supernatural, and if you're a true fan, well, you love most of them, so we still have a lot to talk about. But before we dive into that, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Elektra.
I'm Elektra Hammond. I'm a writer and an editor, and I've been watching Supernatural since that first episode aired, and the last episode of season 15 made me cry.
Melissa. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I'm Melissa. I've been a fan also since the pilot aired, and Kitty has been a fan since June of 2020, because that's when she was born.
And I'm the one who came late to the party. I fell in love with the show halfway through season 11, binge watched 11 seasons in 4 months so I could be ready for the start of season 12. Met a lot of people by live tweeting the episodes from season 12 onward, and fell down the rabbit hole and proudly claimed to be an obsessed fan. So we've covered a lot of episodes so far, but there are still more to dive into. And we all have our handy dandy cheat sheets. So in theory, at least, we won't be repeating anything. Elektra, start us off. Give us a new episode that you love.
New episode, a new old episode. I'm going to start off with a season that we haven't gone so deeply into, that I've been watching again and thinking, you know, this isn't as bad as I thought. Slash Fiction, season 7. This is where the Leviathans duplicate Sam and Dean, and bad Sam and Dean run around and rob banks and kill lots of people, and you know, and Sam and Dean are trying to chase around their duplicates and aren't even sure what to do when they catch them. And Bobby, meanwhile, has a Leviathan named Chet chained up in his cabin and is trying desperately to figure out exactly how do you kill one of these guys. Because even, you know, when you cut their heads off, they don't stop talking. And he accidentally figures it out when Jody is cleaning up upstairs and spills a bucket of mop water that's got the infamous borax in it. Yay, Jody, she solved all our problems, mostly. There's lots and lots of important stuff. It also introduces us to Frank Devereaux in there, who gets rid of all their IDs and Sam's laptop and tells them they can't drive the Impala. And Crowley, in this episode, Crowley also approaches Dick and says, you know, maybe we should work together. And Dick says, I don't think so. You know, I don't need you. I don't need anybody. You know, I'm a Leviathan. You know, take a hike, but, you know, you can leave the muffins. So all sorts of important things happen. And when they finally catch up with their double Leviathans, Leviathan Dean spills to Sam about Amy Pond. And at the end of the episode, Sam is pissed off enough that they split for a while. So it is an action-packed episode, but also filled with tons and tons of information that keeps us going through most of season 7. So all sorts of good stuff happens in there, you know, aside from the whole Leviathans are kind of dumb, but still good stuff.
And I've never looked at a box of borax the same again.
Seriously, isn't this also the episode that Bobby and Jody kiss?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
and decide they like it.
And then they never go anywhere with that. That was always a little disappointing to me that they didn't do anything with that.
Major disappointing.
Yeah. All right, Melissa, what's your first one?
Drag Me Away from You. This was season 3. Excuse me, I'm reading something else. Sorry. Season 3, No Rest for the Wicked. Kripke wrote it. Kim directed it. So like right there, we've got like magic happening. Dean gets dragged to hell, and this episode to me is like a top because the very last moment, Dean gets dragged to hell and he's screaming for Sam, and that's just one of those like iconic moments that you always, if you know the show, that's like one of those touchstone moments. And the other thing about this episode was, you know, if we didn't have the writer's strike that season, the original plan was for Sam to use his powers and prevent Dean from going to hell. But because of the strike and everything, they never worked out that storyline. So this is the episode that we get instead of our Boy King from Hell. And I really love the ending of it, even though it broke my heart and I cry every time I watch it. It's also worthwhile because it has that iconic scene of Dean in hell just screaming for Sam because he knows his brother will save him.
And I think I would have loved to have seen Sam like flip his switches, become the Boy King, and march into hell to save his brother. That would have been very satisfying. It certainly does happen in fan fiction. But what's the line from Man from Luncheon? March into hell for a heavenly cause. But we didn't get that. The other,
Well, we could have in a different universe, but that's a different panel.
That's a different panel. And just the follow-up also on that is they were still doing all practical effects at that time. So when Dean is, getting ripped up by the hellhounds, that's all somebody pulling threads and pulling strings and bubbling blood bags. It's not the CGI that we get later on. So that's pretty impressive. And I wish that they had done the rosary in the water tank for the holy water sprinkler systems more often, because I think whether it was the lawn sprinklers or the building sprinklers, this really could have been a game changer. I'm going to go with Pac-Man Fever. This is a Charlie episode. We get to see more of Charlie's background. We find out what really happened to Charlie and why Charlie is who she is. We also get a fantastic sequence, kind of a dream sequence with in a video game where she and Dean are fighting Nazis, and that's worth it. Just Bandolero. That's worth it just to see that. But for those of us who are Charlie fans and who isn't, finding out what her real backstory is and why she became a hacker and why she, like everybody else in the Winchester Circle, is, dealing with crippling guilt. It just takes us so deep into that character. And in some unexpected ways, that was really not what I thought we were going to get. And so that was very satisfying. Back to you, Elektra.
Back to me again. All right. Well, that happens fast when there's only 3 of us. Okay, I'm sticking with season 7. The Mentalists. Lilydale, New York, a real honest to God place where a whole bunch of people claim to be psychics, and they have a big festival every year. So this episode is actually based in fact, which is just beyond cool. Gosh, what's her name? Lisa Ling did an actual episode of her TV show on CNN on Lilydale, and it's fascinating and just so very cool. And they met with people who actually claimed to be psychics in the episode. They met with people who said, no, I just read people, you know, and they're getting over the previous episode, sort of, where Sam is still pissed at Dean and Dean is trying to get him to get over it. And they're trying to help people, and they keep making wrong guesses and people die. And for a change, they're not dealing with Leviathans. It's a really good Monster of the Week episode set in a real place where they're fighting real ghosts. And it's a really, really fun episode. And it also introduces us, I think this is the first appearance of, you know, Dean wasn't working with Sam, so Bobby sent him a temp, Garth. And I think it's our first introduction to Garth, who, you know, is really a fun character. And he's
Mhm.
older. What's not to like?
Absolutely. Melissa?
Season 6, Exile on Main Street. This begins our non-Kripke era, so I think it's worth mentioning this one. And we have Dean's apple pie life juxtaposed with his real life. And it's just, you can kind of see Dean wasn't actually happy with Lisa. He was surviving with Lisa. He was trying to be happy, but it wasn't really working. And then you get the moment where he realizes that Sam has been back for a while and didn't tell him, and he's so heartbroken, and he's absolutely devastated. And then we come to the point where of all of the many things that happen in Supernatural, ghosts, werewolves, all kinds of monsters, vampires, whatever, this is one of those moments where I have the hardest time believing. I have the hardest time believing that Bobby knew Sam was back and didn't tell Dean. I really, really, really want to know what happened in the writer's room to get them to come to that conclusion that that was a workable thing. And so for me, this episode is kind of memorable just for that, because it was like, it's one of those moments where they took the characters and really went sideways in a way that I find hard to believe. And so I'm always fascinated by this episode, because I really want to sit down with folks and say, what were you thinking?
Well, and you're right. It was a difficult episode because it's the transition between Eric Kripke and his 5-season arc that was supposed to end with Dean in hell and Sam with Sam in hell and Dean, you know, out of the life. And then they got renewed and Sarah Gamble took over. And so they had to kind of twist things because now they had to keep going on. Mm-hmm. And I agree, there were definitely some choices there that are frustrating, because it's like, okay, that's the first idea you had to make this work. Maybe not the best idea. What would be your second or third idea that might be better? And sometimes I think they just ran with that first idea and sort of forced it to make it fit.
Yeah.
That big square hole. And if they'd have put a little more thought, maybe we could have had something that didn't make our brains kind of explode on the side. I'm going to go.
It's just so right. That would have made sense for maybe a couple of weeks.
Right.
But a whole year?
No, if Soul of Sam had said, Bobby, you know, let's see how Dean's doing. I need some time to readjust. Yeah, I could see that. But
that's a couple of weeks. That's not a year.
Yeah, that's not a year.
Mm-hmm.
Or have it that Bobby didn't know until very recently. Easy to tweak if somebody had just kind of thought about it, which drives me crazy.
Why did Bobby have to know? That's where I come down to. Why did Bobby have to know at all?
Why wouldn't Sam have avoided Bobby? Because he's working with Samuel. And he doesn't have a soul. He wouldn't have the affection toward Bobby that regular Sam would have. So it would have been easy to dance around that, where Bobby goes, don't blame me. I only found out about it a couple of weeks ago.
Mhm.
And I was letting you boys handle it. Before I had to step in and smack your heads together. That's Bobby.
Yep.
Well,
I'm gonna-
Samuel had some lore, but did he have anybody as good with the lore as Bobby?
Maybe not.
And that may have been why theoretically Sam was calling Bobby.
Right. Well, for my episode, for my next episode, I'm going to say everybody hates Hitler. Because I absolutely love Aaron Bass, and his column. But and I'm going to actually see him at one of the upcoming conventions, and I'm stoked about that. Just such an unassuming guy. And yet he's inherited this, kind of like the boys, he's inherited this mandate, this mission from his grandfather, the rabbi. And he's not really sure he wants this. He also inherited a golem who he doesn't exactly know how to control because he didn't really read the manual. And so, and we also get to see and I don't speak German, so whether it's Thule or Tool, the supernatural wing of the Nazis that actually is based on fact, that they were trying very, very hard to find magic that worked in real life. And so we only got to see those guys in a couple of episodes. I think I would have liked to have seen more of them than the British Men of Letters, frankly, because I thought they were potentially more interesting and a lot more scary. But I really loved Aaron as a kind of fumbling hero who still does the right thing in the end. And there's this one moment where Aaron and the Golem are in the Impala, and Sam and Dean have just dug up a grave to burn the bones. And Jared apparently improvised, just putting his hands out to warm them over the burning body, because, this is sort of an every night thing for the boys, and it's cold out. And we flash to the outsider perspective of Aaron and his Golem in the car, and Aaron just watches them and goes, they're psychopaths. And we realize that if we weren't on the inside of the journey with the boys, we probably think they were psychopaths too. So there's just for some of the darker threads in the show, there's still some wonderful humor here. And Team Aaron, I thought he was terrific. Back to you, Elektra.
Okay. I never thought I would say these words, but after you did the one with the dark people looking on the outside, here's the humor-filled episode, season 7, Time for a Wedding, where we get to see from the outside perspective of, well, Sam, he's just hot. And, Becky just wanted Sam so bad. She wanted a great date for her 10-year reunion that she made friends with someone that she thought was completely harmless, a Wiccan even, who gave her a little bit of love potion and didn't want anything in return because they were buds. And she slipped Sam a love potion, and they got married in Vegas and went back to, of all places, Pike Creek of Delaware for her reunion. And does anybody think it's weird that she's from the same place as Nick?
Interesting.
It just seems odd that they picked that place for two people. And she brought him back and wanted to go to the reunion, but she just didn't have enough of that juice to keep him subdued. And when she went back for more, now there was a price, and it wasn't money, it was her soul. And she was hip to the fact that this was a crossroads demon, but she wasn't sure she wanted to give up her soul just for a date to the reunion. So yeah, things got kind of silly. At least she was smart enough not to sign away her soul. And Crowley got really miffed about the fact that a crossroads demon was collecting early because it was screwing with consumer confidence.
I
And
mean, if you don't have your reputation, what do you have?
absolutely nothing. And he's all about reputation.
Well,
And, Crowley, he's the guy. So he set things straight.
We have Garth backing Dean up on this.
Oh yeah, until he got knocked unconscious and missed the whole thing.
And we have Dean's idea of a wedding present, which is a waffle iron.
Which was great until Becky knocked Sam unconscious with it. It was all kind of cute until it got annulled. Yeah, and they were going to work cases together. It was just so cute. It was a little weird, but cute.
It had that Stephen King misery aspect, some definite non-con there, which tied him to the bed. But yeah.
It was a little creepy, but cute, yet creepy.
Dean trying to fathom when Sam is so happily telling him, I'm getting married. I've met the love of my life. And it's Becky. It definitely had its moments.
Yeah, and she was dating Chuck and they broke up. Yeah. None of that ever made sense.
But Becky got a redemption arc. I think that's important to mention when we mention Time for a Wedding, because, with the non-con and everything, a lot of people hated Becky, thought she was not a flattering representation of fangirls, which I agree. But then she got redeemed in, season 14, where she's married. She still loves the fandom. She still writes fan fiction and runs a website, but she's now got balance and
bobbleheads and
yeah, she can embrace fandom, but she's grounded now, and she's got boundaries, and presumably either she doesn't tie her husband to the bed or he likes it that way. I mean, we don't really know, but
he was really happy until Chuck got pissed that she didn't tell him his writing was awesome.
Mm-hmm. So, but Becky does get a redemption arc, which I think is important. Melissa?
Just one last thing about that episode. We have Leslie Odom Jr. in that episode. So, that episode is worth watching for me just for that, because I'm not happy with how they twisted Becky, because I don't think that that was a whole lot of non-con part, and it didn't seem in character for me. And so, I love that episode because we get Leslie, and
I like that in the end, when she realized what it was, she stood up to him and said, no, I'm not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole lot of, this is what I want, but I'm not giving up my soul. Are you kidding? This is not what we do.
Yeah.
Right.
And she went looking for ways to go after him for what, now she knows he's a demon. She went looking for ways to kill him.
True. My episode is Reichenbach. We get to see a very different Dean here. He's mean. He's handsy with a stripper, which that's not our Dean. There's a really nice juxtaposition where Cole's beating up Sam, and then Dean's beating up a bouncer. Those cuts back and forth between the two fights were really great. And then we get that parking lot scene with Cole and Dean fighting, and it's just epic. It's one of the few fights for me that's really memorable. That fight was just one of those epic kind of battles, because Dean is having so much fun beating the snot out of him. He's just enjoying himself in a way that we don't normally see. Dean doesn't take pleasure in fighting the supernatural. But with Cole, he is so happy. It's absolutely delightful. So I love that episode for that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to pick one that's either right before or right after that one, and it's Black. So this is when Sam, so I think it's the first episode of season 10. Sam finds out that Dean's body is missing, and he finds a note that is in Dean's handwriting saying, "Sammy, let me go." Well, of course, Sammy's not going to let him go. So now Sam is trying to figure out where Dean has gone and what's going on. Crowley's not answering. Sam's got a hurt shoulder. Blamed on demons, but actually we know for real came from a wrestling match with Ozra Chow. And just watching Sam's quiet desperation as he searches for Dean. And Dean, meanwhile, is off, singing karaoke and drinking and wenching and doing all the things demons do. And we really see Dean, we grasp how much being a demon has twisted Dean when Cole kidnaps Sam and tells Dean that if Dean doesn't show up, he's going to kill Sam. And Dean pretty much says, okay, I mean, realize if you do that, I'll have to kill you, but go ahead, kill him. I told him not to come after me. And that's when we really know that this isn't our Dean. And so I really did I thought Cole got off too easy altogether. I really thought that it would have been more in character once Dean got his soul back for him to still come after Cole, because Cole had it coming. Dean has killed people for less. But I wasn't writing the show. Back to you, Elektra.
If only you'd been writing the show, what would we have seen? You guys are leading me into season 10. And one of my favorites from season 10 is Hibbing 911, where we get to see the sheriff's convention. And we get to see that Donna does, in fact, have a type. And if it's sheriffs named, oh gosh, what were they? What? Doug, yes. It's sheriff's name's Doug because she loves a guy in uniform. And it's her and Jody meet, and we discover like all sorts of fun things about her and Jody does not want to be there. And strange things are afoot, and eventually we discover it's things that maybe the boys would be interested in, and they're called in, and one of the sheriffs is a vampire. And turns out Donna just takes things in stride. Okay, well, it's a vampire. What do I do? And she turns out to be just very pragmatic about the whole monster thing. More so than you would expect from somebody who's cute and blonde and zoftig. And she is just super fun. And between her and Jody, they handle things pretty well. They get some help from the boys, but it's the start of a lovely relationship there. And they go and they clean out the vampire nest, and they take care of the problem with the sheriff, who's a vamp, because we can't have him hanging out. And it's a really, really fun episode. And we start to see more of both Donna and Jody, which is good because we need more female characters in this darn TV show.
I just wish that Sheriff Kathleen from the Benders had been at that convention, because the Benders was in Hibbing.
Right.
So either Sheriff Kathleen didn't make it this year to the convention, or she gave up being a sheriff after they solved the mystery of her brother's death. But I would have loved to have seen her meet up with them. And then they all could have
gave up being a sheriff and joined the FBI.
There you go. And then it would have been interesting to see all the people that Sam and Dean had run into, but they're triangulating on, wait, they're FBI. I thought they were food and beverage inspectors. Wait, I thought they were, all the different badges. Melissa.
Since we're talking about season 10, Paper Moon, because this episode opens up with Werewolf in London. And you got that great song, and it was like, I kept waiting for them to use some of the really classic songs that are connected to monsters in the show. And I probably have watched the opening of this episode a billion times because I love the song. I love the montage. It's really cool. The guys are on vacation, and this is something we never get to see. And the rest of it's just sort of a meh monster of the week. Who cares? But the beginning, where you've got Werewolf in London overplaying with the actual werewolves, you gotta watch it. Even if you don't watch the rest of the episode, you gotta watch the beginning.
Okay. I'm going to go for Plush. Plush is a really creepy episode where, as it turns out, innocent people who rent costumes from this place end up being possessed by a spirit that was associated with the costumes. And we don't find that out for a while. We don't know who these costumed killers are until we start to realize that they're people who just borrowed a costume and then got possessed by it. And as it turns out, there was a very sick individual who died, and his sister contributed the costumes that he had collected, and he haunted the costumes. And so his ghost kind of brought his instability and malice along with it. But just that idea of when you put on a costume, actually ending up putting on the character and being possessed by the costume was, to me, really super creepy. Because I've been in some costume shops that kind of made me wonder around the edges if maybe there were some possessed things lurking there. And so I really liked that. I thought it was a very interesting hook for the story. Elektra.
Here we go again. Okay. How about Fresh Blood? That's back in season 3. And we've got vampires overrunning the place. And Gordon the Hunter is back, and he's after Sam because Sam is trouble. You know, he's still got this thing on for Sam, and the vampires get him and turn him. And now Gordon is a vampire. And now we don't have to worry about Gordon anymore because, well, Gordon's a vampire and he's not our problem anymore. He's got other problems. And notably, at the end of this episode, Dean finally starts showing Sam how to fix baby. There's a beautiful scene at the end where he starts, saying, look, you're going to need to know how to do this. Because it's near the end of season, it's in the middle, I think, of season 3. So he's starting to show him, well, you're going to have to maintain the car. Let's get out some tools and I'll show you. And I like that a whole lot more than saying goodbye to Gordon, because I like Sterling K. Brown, but Gordon was a real irritant and he needed to be gone.
That scene where Dean is teaching Sam about the Impala, if you watch it carefully at first, he says, come here, he pulls Sam into touching the car, actually working on the engine. And you see the little brother in Sam going, really, you're going to let me touch you? You're going to show me how to do this? This is so cool. And then Dean says, because you're going to have to take care of her when I'm gone. And Sam just crumples. It's like he went from, my big brother is letting me do a grown-up thing, to he's dying. And that's why he's showing me. And it's just in Jared's body language and facial expression, but if you're watching it closely, it's really heartbreaking. And again, these guys do so much just with their expressions that brings so much depth to the characters. Back to you, Melissa.
Okay, so I'm kind of pushing the edges of my list here. But Rock Never Dies, because we have my second favorite incarnation of Lucifer. I thought Rick Springfield absolutely killed it as Lucifer, and he was fabulous in this episode. So, I got to have this on my list because it's one of those. Okay, there are only a few episodes that I actually skip when I'm doing my rewatch, but this is one of those ones that I really look forward to because we've got Rick Springfield, and I think this is the episode where they're in the auditorium, and we've got Sam holding the doors, and it's just a lot of pretty. And
Yeah.
so it's worth watching just for that.
I am doing a quick look here to see if we have done Red Sky at Morning. I don't think we have.
I don't think we have.
Pardon?
I don't think so.
Okay. This is the one with the people who are drowning on dry ground, and it's got a haunted ship in the background. We've got Bella up to no good, and those things alone are great for an episode. But what it comes down to with most of the people, I think with everybody, was betrayal. And of course, this is when the boys are again not on the best footing. And so, yeah, I thought it was creepy. I thought the ghost stuff was done well. And Bella, what can I say? Elektra.
Oh, wow. You're going pretty deep this time. Have we done There's No Place Like Home?
I
I don't think we have.
don't think we have.
Even if we have, go for it.
There's No Place Like Home is when Charlie comes back, and this is season 10 where Charlie comes back and she's doing evil things. And she comes back from Oz and she's not quite herself, and they're somewhat concerned. And then she comes back and asks them for help. And it turns out that there's two Charlies, because the key to Oz has broken her in half. And they go back and forth, and they find out about all of her trials and tribulations here. This is the good Charlie and the bad Charlie. And they go through the Men of Letters archives and find out what's going on, and they find the wizard. It's a very deep episode and heavy into Oz lore. And Charlie has to accept the bad part of her personality back, because we are all made of good and bad. And Charlie goes to her mom and reads her The Hobbit one more time.
That's such an amazing scene.
It's a very, very cool episode. And again, Felicia Day. Because as you pointed out, we are all fans of Felicia Day and Charlie.
Oh, absolutely. Melissa.
I hate to say this, but I'm tapped out between the stuff that I already had. You guys pulled some of the stuff that was on my list. So I'm going to have to pass this round.
Okay. Well, I'm going to end us up then with the Chitters. This is where Sam and Dean are coming in to, again, look into mysterious disappearances in the woods, and the cop doesn't seem to care much about it. And they run into a pair of other hunters. They realize that this is a cycle, that whatever is killing these people is repeating what happened a number of years ago and years before that. And so you kind of get the feeling it's sort of like killer cicadas. But they run into a pair of hunters, and Caesar and Jesse, and together they solve the mystery and find the monster. And of course, we find out that Caesar's little brother, which is what we saw in the flashback at the beginning, was killed by this monster. And so Caesar's not going to stop hunting until he gets justice for his dead brother, which, you know, the Winchesters can totally relate to. And then they catch the monster and they kill the monster. And that's when we find out that Caesar and Jesse are together, and they're going to retire now. They have plans. They are going to go live an apple pie life, and they are out. And in the car on the way, as Sam and Dean are driving away, Sam said, you know, I was sort of surprised you didn't ask them for help with Amara. And Dean said, no, they got their happy ending. They're out. I'm not going to drag them back into our mess. And there's some wistfulness there, because Sam and Dean have always kind of doubted that a happy ending was possible. And seeing Caesar and Jesse get it, you definitely get the feeling that, you know, there's a little bit of wistfulness, not exactly jealousy, but boy, wouldn't it be nice if we could have that too? And so I really liked that about the episode. Well,
And
folks, oh, go
I
ahead.
love that episode because it's launched some really great fanfic with Caesar and Jesse, because they are the hunters who got out, and a male couple. It just, this fandom goes crazy over it. So there's some really great stories for that. So this episode's got that bonus of it lives on in fandom in some really great ways.
Yeah, and it's always wonderful when you get those one-shot characters, when fanfic continues their story and gives you more of them, because the show, you know, that wasn't the focus of the show, but it was really nice to see them again. And I agree, I've read some really good fics. Well, folks, we have blown through our time again. So before we wrap up, please tell us where we can find you online, Elektra.
You can find me at untilmidnight.com, and I'm Elektra at wandering.shop on Mastodon.
Okay. Melissa.
You can find me in the Supernatural Facebook group, TFWNC. I think that's got right. I don't know. I get it wrong all the time. Or here talking about Supernatural and Continual.
And I'm pretty easy to find at gailzmartin.com, morganbryce.com. I do run the Supernatural TFWNC Facebook group dedicated to the show. I'm a columnist for the Winchester Family Business, but most of the time you can find me here on Continual. So thank you guys for being awesome panelists. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more Supernatural coming up soon, so we'll see you online.